Chapter 1. The Ultimatum. It's real simple. Either you pay the money and live, or refuse and come up missing. Patrick's ultimatum was straightforward. His either-or scenario left no room for misinterpretation. Every business owner in a 20-mile radius of Orlando's downtown nightlife had heard of his notorious shakedown methods. Negotiating in good faith was a complimentary act. Anything short of that provoked grim circumstances. Now it was Tony's turn to learn how business was handled when it came to the Church Street district. His club Metropolis was a new hotspot, and this tremendous financial upside sparked Patrick's interest. So let me get this straight. You telling me if I don't pay you, then my life will be in danger. Is that about right? Tony asked with a smirk on his face. What's understood ain't gotta be said, Patrick answered, while his 6'4" frame tightened. Tony shook his head. Where they do that at? The New Orleans transplant was accepting no parts of the apparent shakedown. In fact, he could care less about the bravado being thrown his way. I don't know where you from, but I'm from New Orleans, you heard me? It's called a murder capital for a reason. Patrick sized up the 5'9" loud-talking giant.
Oh, that sound good.
His bravery was expected, he reasoned. A person standing up for what was theirs was not out of the ordinary, but dying for it was a road few dared to travel. Okay, Mr. New Orleans, I gotta respect where you coming from. The sarcasm in Patrick's response was misinterpreted by Tony. Shit, you got no choice but respect, you heard me? Patrick smiled at his clueless foe. It had been a long time since he faced resistance.
This boy gonna make me kill him.
The humor in Patrick's thoughts made him chuckle. He knew if he wanted to, he could put hands on Tony, and the beating would be so severe that no one would recognize him in the state of Louisiana, let alone his city of New Orleans. See you around, Tony.
Fuck, boy.
A final dig from Patrick set the tone. The two exchanged smiles. The smiles were for different reasons. Their collision could not be avoided. It was only a matter of when. Patrick walked past Tony slowly. He had to compose himself because his hands were itching to put in work.
I should beat your ass right now.
But he knew that this was not the right time. He was willing to let Tony believe that he had the upper hand because deception was a diversionary tactic when traps were being set, a truth he knew all too well. After putting the disagreement behind him, Patrick walked deeper into the Church Street district. He stopped by Club Antigua, Chillers, and Bliss Ultra Lounge and collected his money. All of the owners obliged, but were unwilling participants. Their participation level was only bolstered by Patrick's violent history and terrorist threats. But all was not lost with Patrick's extortion attempts. He did offer one perk, if one wanted to call it a perk. The businesses he received money from did not have to spend money on security for their establishments. There were no signs of security guards or bouncers in these spots. There was no need. Once the word got around that Patrick designated the spot a violence-free zone, patrons acted accordingly. Exiting the last club, Patrick looked around for any potential danger in the crowd. He understood the streets. He was carrying a book bag full of cash, and he knew that his reputation would be blind to a broken man's dream. Patrick walked through the crowd. Several women with form-fitting dresses caught his eye as he looked on with admiration. Women are sexier now than they were when I grew up. Patrick's thoughts wasted no time validating what his eyes processed. Between the consumption of the steroid-injected meats and the cosmetic surgeries, women's bodies were being transformed into near-perfect specimens. The smile sent his way by the younger women intrigued him. It made him feel like he still possessed what the young people are now calling swag. That is what happens when you're in your 40s and your temptress is in her 20s. Patrick played it cool around the women because he knew he had a young lady waiting for him at the hotel. He had won her over earlier at the mall with a Chick-fil-A meal, and now she was waiting at the room to show her appreciation. Patrick took one last look over his shoulder, then headed to his car. Tony watched as Patrick walked through the Church Street district. He could not believe what had just taken place. Was his mind playing tricks on him? It was a surreal moment that took a minute to adjust to.
What the fuck just happened?
A dishonorable deal was being offered that no real man would think was feasible. Tony took it as an insult and vowed to fight back. Applied pressure meant nothing to him. All it did was raise his propensity for violence. I should have slapped the shit out of him, Tony said, swinging his hand in a hard motion through the air and striking an imaginary face. His anger was building while he bit down hard on his bottom lip. Tony thought he had seen it all after surviving Hurricane Katrina, but now he was being confronted by a different kind of disaster, a proposition that brought him to a fork-in-the-road decision. The remedy was a no-brainer. Not in a million years would he let anyone take advantage of him. He had handled so many of those so-called gangsters in his past, and if it came down to it, he would do it again. While he fought with his invisible foe, a line began to form outside the club Metropolis. His free admission and drinks before 11 promotion for the ladies was working to perfection. About 50 women were socializing and waiting for the club to open. The line was being held up for a reason. The beautiful women were being used as exotic billboards to attract their hormone-driven male counterparts. It worked as planned, as a large group of men joined the line within seconds. Tony's smile finally returned after seeing the dollars accumulate right before his eyes. It took him 4 years to get the club up and running, and another 3 years to build a crowd of loyal club goers, and now he was seeing the fruits of his labor. After several minutes passed, he signaled to the bouncer to open up the doors. As the crowd walked in, the bouncer waved Tony over. "Is everything good? Was that guy trying to start some trouble?" "Nah, he got me mixed up with someone else, that's all." Ricky nodded, then went back to watching the crowd as they entered the doors. Tony walked past Ricky and smiled. Ricky looked over his shoulder to catch Tony quickly dropping his smile after walking past him. His suspicions were confirmed. Something was wrong. Once Tony made it back to his office, he sat down and opened his drawer and pulled out his Taurus 38 revolver. He opened the barrel. The chamber was fully loaded. He spun the barrel several times, then snapped it back in place.
You got me fucked up.
If the pressure of running a club wasn't enough, now he had to deal with this nonsense. Tony rose from his seat and slid the gun into his right pocket. The weight of the gun weighed down his black linen pants. His conscience had him feeling like he was doing something wrong. "He don't want it with me," Tony yelled. His voice was reaching a fever pitch as he walked to the minibar that sat in the corner of his office. To calm himself down, he grabbed a bottle of Hennessy and poured some in a red party cup. He grabbed some ice and dropped it in to give it that chill effect. After several sips, he relaxed, but a knock at the door put a clamp on his newfound nirvana. He looked through the video monitor that sat on his desk. It was Ricky, the bouncer from the front. "Come in," he yelled. Ricky walked in. Standing 6'3" and weighing around 300 pounds, his massive figure was intimidating. "What's up?" Tony asked. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. I heard bits and pieces of what you and that dude was talking about, and it didn't seem like he came here to welcome you to the area." "Okay, you're right, but it ain't nothing I can't handle. You heard?" "I hear you, but a guy like that has to be dealt with, because he's not likely to be persuaded." Tony knew what Ricky was saying was correct, but he tried not to alarm his employee of his weariness. "Look, I'm from New Orleans. You heard?" Tony sipped some more of his cognac. He looked around his office at the flat-screen televisions that hung on the wall, the fully stocked minibar, and the pool table that he seldom used, and felt a sense of pride. He had designed an impressive man cave for himself and was not ready to give that up. "So what do you think I should do?" Tony asked. "I say you let me handle this little problem for you. I live for this type of shit. I will find this dude and scare the shit out of him. He would know he picked the wrong person to mess with this time." Tony looked at Ricky. He was a solidly built dude, a monster with a gentle smile. His hands had scars from past wars. This helped solidify Tony's decision. "That sounds cool, but one small problem. We don't know who this guy is." "Don't worry about that. I will find him. It can't be that many people around here shaking down businesses. I'm pretty sure you are not the first and most definitely won't be the last." Tony looked at Ricky with a newfound respect. He was not just a hulking figure keeping the patrons in line in his eyes no more. Now he was an alert employee that picked up on things rather quickly. This was the main reason he narrowed in on the conversation the tough guy was having with him. "You're probably right," Tony said. "I know I'm right. One monkey don't stop the show. You know how that goes. Well, listen, this conversation goes no further than these walls. I don't want anyone in my troubles. We're on the same page, right?" "Absolutely. This guy has crossed the line, and if he is half the man he thinks he is, then he will be back. But before he has a chance to size you up again, I will make sure he understands he's barking up the wrong tree. Don't worry, I'm going to send this dude a strong message for you. Tony gave Ricky the approval nod. He really did not care what Ricky was going to do, as long as he didn't have to see that guy's face again. The conversation reached its end. All that could be said was said. Ricky left the office and Tony returned to his desk in deep thought as he sipped on the remaining cognac in his cup. After returning to his post in the club, Ricky's mind started coming up with ideas, so he decided to run with one. Following the guy seemed to be the best option, he determined. It would at least give him a chance to find out who he was dealing with. With his mind made up, he told the other bouncers that he had to make a run to his car to get something, so he needed someone to cover for him. They agreed, so he left. Outside of the club, Ricky looked around to see if he could find the guy in the crowd. There was no sight of him, so he walked through the crowd in the direction of the parking lot that was under the Interstate 4 bridge. Just as he turned the corner, he spotted him opening his car door. It was showtime. Ricky walked quickly to his car. He kept his eyes glued on his target as he traveled in between the parked cars. He could see the guy was sitting in his car looking at something. This helped him make it to his car without being noticed.